Angular HTTP CRUD operation. So here we're going to perform create, read, update, delete using HTTP post, get, put, delete. By creating single page application that will have 4 buttons, and it will make RESTful services call to .NET's Web API project. Here we'll create an Angular HTTP Hello World application that you can see on the right hand side, and we'll have 4 buttons. So Angular application CRUD operation as a heading. So the first will be post call, then get call, and then put call, and finally delete call. So when we click on post, we get success. This is coming from on your left hand side, the Web API project, RESTful services. So return is success. And when we put a breakpoint, it hits the breakpoint when we click the button. So you can see these variables and the values that get passed from the UI into the .NET Web API project. When we press HTTP get call button, we get this string, teamworks rocks, and you can see the same string out here in the get function of the Web API project. And you can see it returns. So we put a breakpoint and you will see that the breakpoint gets hit. Now we'll press the put button. We'll put a breakpoint out here so that we can see that it stops. These values out here you can see are passed from the UI. So you can see val1 and val2, and this object put model data object gets filled, and it's defined out here. It has got 2 variables, and these value comes from the UI Angular project and comes here. Now we'll click on delete call and it will hit the breakpoint. And you can see the ID, that is ID value that's coming from the URL, that gets passed out here. So on the basis of ID, you can make any delete operation. Now since this is Angular application that we are building, so we will not be creating this Web API project. You can go to GitHub and download the Web API project and run it. So open up browser, go to github.com coders range /angular-web API-CRUD example, and then click on clone download, copy this, and now open up the bash, git bash, and here git space clone, and then paste this, space paste this. Now when you hit enter in the directory that you are in, it's going to download all of the code. You will get the Angular project as well as the Web API project. Now go to the Git directory where you have downloaded the code. We go to projects, and here open the Web API-CRUD service, and when web application 1.solution, it is going to open the solution in Visual Studio 2017. Make sure you have Visual Studio 2017. Now we'll run this project by hitting F5 and then making a get call to see that the string comes back in the browser. So here the browser comes up, and we are going to append it with API/controller, which is our home, and then pass an ID. So we'll pass 5, and that will make the get call and get us the string in this browser. So we can see that teamwork rocks comes up, and that's the same string that's coming out here. And so our RESTful services Web API project works fine. Now we'll open Visual Studio Code, create Angular project using ng new and project name. In this case, we'll give Angular HTTP Hello World, and then start to code. In Visual Studio Code, go to View, open Integrated Terminal, and here we are going to create a new project with the command ng new and the project name, which in this case is Angular HTTP Hello World. Hit enter. This will create the new project for us. Now we'll open the project by going to File, Open Folder, navigate to the project folder, newly created project folder, select it, and that will open the project for us. Again, we'll open the integrated terminal by going to View, Integrated Terminal, and generate a component by typing ng gc, G for generate, C for component, and then we'll give a folder name components/connection page. Now we'll go to apps.components.html file, and delete the existing code that came with the new command. Then we'll go to its TS file, app.components.ts file, and delete this variable. Now go to newly generated components TS file and pick up this selector, copy this from here, and then go to app.components.html file and create a tag out here. So on the launch of our application, this component will come up. Now we launch the application ngserve -open, and you can see that connection page works comes up. So we'll close this, we'll close the terminal. Now we'll open the connection page.components.html file, delete this code, and start to code our HTML page. So paragraph tag, and then Angular application CRUD operation. That's the heading we are giving to the page. Now we'll create an HR tag for a line, and then we'll create first button input type is equal to button. Then we'll give a name to it, post button btn, and then style to the button. Here we are going to define the width and height of the button. And then bracket start, click. This is event binding that we are doing, and we'll write post data. This is the function that we'll code in the TypeScript file. Value is equal to execute HTTP post call. Then we'll close this tag, br for next line. Now we'll go to TypeScript file and here code the function public post data. We'll create a variable URL. So const URL is equal to, this is where we are going to put the URL, post URL. And since we need to make a call to the post API, so we are going to actually first import. So const retval, we'll go on top of the file and we'll type import HTTP client, comma HTTP header. These are the modules that we'll be importing from. So from Angular /common /HTTP. Then using dependency injection, we'll create a variable named HTTP of type HTTP client in the constructor. So private HTTP :HTTP client. This is dependency injection. And then we'll go to our function, and there we are going to say this.http.post bracket start URL. And here the second parameter will be the variables that we have defined in the post function of the web API project. And so first var value, and we'll give a value to it, let's say 111, and then second var value, and the value will be 222. Note these are the values that will be passed to the post function of the web API project, and it will have the same variable names out there. Now dot subscribe bracket start data. Now we'll create another variable public ret post data. This variable will hold the return value from the post function of the web API project. So here this dot ret post data equal to data, and then bracket close. Now this second parameter of the post API that has got first var val and second var val that we are passing are the same variables that we have defined in the post model data class. Now this post function will return success when we call it. So we'll run the project, web API project. Now this localhost and the port that we'll copy from here, and we'll put it in the URL. We'll take this API /controller, which is the home controller, and we'll copy it and paste it out here in the URL. This is where it's going to navigate. So localhost port API and the controller name home. Then we'll save this and make sure that this is the same as the one that we are referring to in the web API project. So this object holds the two variables that we have defined in the post API of the Angular project. You can see out here the second parameter of the post API is the same. Now we'll go to the connection page TypeScript file and copy this variable and place it out here using interpolation in the connection page.components.html. After this, we are going to go to apps.module.ts file, and that's where we are going to import the HTTP client module. So import bracket start, curly bracket start, HTTP client module from @angular/common/HTTP. Now we'll copy the HTTP client module and register in the import section of the ng module decorator and save it. Now we'll go to view, integrated terminal and launch the project. Oops, the button size is, so we go to the HTML page of the component and here in the style, so we'll change this to height and this to width. So we need to swap this. Now save it. And so when we click on this button, we'll see that the success get returned, which is the word that our post function of the web API returns. So we can see this success. Now we are going to split the screen. So we have the web API project on the left hand side and our UI Angular on the right hand side. So we hit again the button and we can see that the breakpoint hits, and you can see that the variables out here gets passed the value 111 and 222, which is what we had defined in the second parameter of the post API of Angular project. So we will close the terminal and you can see out here the second parameter of the post API has the same values that are being passed here. Now we'll minimize this UI project and minimize our web API project, and then go to our HTML page of the component and start to code the second call, which is the get call. So br tag for next line. We'll copy this button and we'll change it out here to get, and then we'll change this function name to get data, and finally in the value we'll update this to get. Now we'll code this function in the TypeScript file get data. So we'll create an br tag for next line and then go to TypeScript file and type public get data bracket start. Here const URL is equal to, we are going to give the URL out here, and then this dot http dot get URL dot subscribe data. Here we are going to create a variable again, public ret post data, that's gonna hold the data that gets returned by the get call. So we'll copy this dot ret post data equal to data. Now we'll go to the web API project, and from there we are going to take the URL that needs to be placed out here in the get call. So you can see that API home and 5 is the parameter. We can give any other parameter we want, so we'll copy this and we'll paste this out here and place the parameter. We could give 1, 2, 3, whatever we want, and the ID will catch the parameter and the string will get returned. We could also put an if condition out here on the basis of some if ID is equal to 1 to do some database call, whatever we want in the web API project. So now we'll save all of this, and then we'll take this variable, and in the HTML we are going to create interpolation, data binding using interpolation. and place this variable out here and save this. So this variable will hold the string that comes back. Now we launch our application, click on the button, and we can see that the whole string came back. JSON, whatever you want to return, you can return. This is the same string that's coming from here. If we put a breakpoint and we press the button, we can see that the breakpoint hits and the 5 which was passed in the URL gets passed out here. So our get call is working absolutely fine, and it calls the RESTful service that's built on Web API project of .NET. So all of the string matches everything, just to prove the point that we have the same string that's coming in. So our get call is complete. Now we'll code our third call, which is HTTP put call. So we'll go to our HTML page and there create a BR tag and an HR tag for new line. And then we are going to copy the button and paste it out here down under and change the value from get to put. Out here, put data is the function name. You can have any function name that you want, and then out here the value as put call, HTTP put call. So HR tag. Here in the TypeScript file we are going to code the function public put data const URL is equal to, that's where we are going to put the URL, and then next line this dot http dot post bracket start URL comma, here's where we are going to pass the values. So the variable name is data var1, and then we are going to put a value, let's say val1, and then data var2 and val2 dot subscribe bracket start data, and here it's not return anything, so we are going to just say console.log and whatever. So it's going to return a null out here, just putting it in console.log, nothing. So this data var1 and data var2 is the same exactly as the one defined out here in the class named put model data. So you can see that put model data holds two variables. That's exactly the same as the one that we are passing in the second parameter of the post. So you can see these variables are going to come out here and they're going to get into the string. So I've created a string and just holding the value out here. So that's what we are going to do. And this is the URL that we're going to copy out here and then place it out here. And we can give any ID that we want. So let's give an ID. So we place the breakpoint and we hit the put, and we can see that the ID gets passed. Whatever ID we give in the URL, that's going to get passed. Let's change the ID. So we update the ID and then we save it, and we again click on the button. So now the ID is 10. And we hit the button, we are going to see that the ID gets updated. So our put call is working fine, and it actually passes the data. We'll minimize this. Now we'll go and we'll create the delete call. So again, we are going to copy this and paste it and change this to delete btn, and out here delete data, and then execute http delete call. So we'll copy this and go to our TypeScript file and code this function public delete data bracket start bracket close. Here const URL is equal to, again this is the place where we type the URL. Now this dot http dot delete, here we are going to put URL as the first parameter, and then we are going to do subscribe data, and since this is also not returning anything, so we are going to put console.log. You also need to make sure that you enable course cross origin resource sharing in the web API project. So when you download my project, you already have it enabled, and so you're good. But if you're creating a new project, web API project, RESTful services, you need to enable cross origin resource sharing. Please refer to my video for that. Here we can also do error handling. So we'll do err and then console.log, and we can give a custom error message. So if an error happens, we'll get to know that this custom message gets displayed in the console. So error occurred. Now we'll save this project and we'll launch our UI, and we'll test the delete call. So here comes our UI on saving it, and on the left hand side you have the web API. We'll put a breakpoint, and you can see this API controller and the ID that is being passed. We'll take this URL and we'll paste it out here and change the ID to 5, and now we'll save this again and execute our HTTP delete call. We can see that the breakpoint hits and the ID 5 gets passed. This is the ID 5 that we passed out there. This brings us to the end of HTTP CRUD tutorial, where we successfully demonstrated the RESTful service call post, get, put, and delete. Thanks for watching this tutorial.